Welcome back, everyone. Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this update, we're going to be talking about the overall shifts and the setups with the polar vortex returning and a major snowstorm developing next week, along with an Arctic blast coming in by the end of the month. So let's take a look at the overall jet stream this afternoon. You can see where this upper level low is. We've got winter storm watches in place for southeastern Colorado and parts of New Mexico. We've got some very heavy snow that's going to be breaking out. To the south, we've got the jet stream elongated into the southeast. That's going to bring some heavier rains in this region. But up to the northwest, we're watching another upper level low pressure center. That's the one that's going to be diving even further south and bring some southern snow by next week. So let's take a look at the setup for tomorrow. And there's your marginal risk for excessive rainfall further south, down essentially from Beaumont all the way to Savannah. This area shaded in green for the southeast is going to be expecting about 1 to 3 inches of rainfall coming up for the day for tomorrow. But to the northwest of there, it's all about the snow flying where that upper level low will be locked over that region. For the next 24 to 36 hours, we could be seeing a bullseye up there in southeastern Colorado of portions, a foot of snow. I can't even roll out even some 18-inch amounts. It's really, this could overperform, and that will swing into portions of western Kansas there, but also another swath of snow that's going to be up here into Vermont and New Hampshire, back into Massachusetts, up here into Maine, with some pretty good snows as well, and just a kind of a dusting through the Ohio Valley. So if you are new to the channel and like detailed weather breakdowns on North America, hit the subscribe button and you're in. You get all my daily content on this channel. And it's also important to hit the like button as well. It definitely helps out more than you know. So let's really delve into the details here and take a look at the overall temperatures headed into tomorrow. So these are morning low temperatures, and you can kind of see there's really technically, well, at least right now, there's not much for, say, Arctic air in place. We've been dealing with a fairly warmer January, but things are going to be slowly changing as we get deeper into the end of the month, and especially by the end of the month in a big way. You can see the temperatures as you wake up tomorrow, and all these areas in blue, we've got widespread 20s. Where the Arctic air is up there in Quebec. You're talking teens, potentially below zero in spots up there. So that's where the true Arctic air is. But there's going to be more of that going to be building across Canada and going to be lowering into the lower 48 by the end of next week. So let's take a look at the setups for Sunday. So on Saturday, you're going to have that widespread rains break out across the southeast. That will continue to shift right along this boundary of this warm front down here into places into Georgia, back into the Carolinas. We'll swing it up through portions of Virginia there. And then the snowstorm will be kind of winding itself down across portions of the Ohio Valley and through portions of Pennsylvania, while we got really kind of renewed snows up there in portions of Idaho and to Montana, and that swings into Wyoming. So as we swing through Monday, so this is going to be a significant setup in the change in the overall system. Here, look at the vorticity as this swings down from the northwest through the Rockies. Look how far west it is. That's a significant change. Most of these actually setups have been forming basically east of the I-35 corridor, but not this one. Not only does it swing west, but it actually slows down. And what that allows it to do is drag down some of that colder air and kind of mix in with this upper level low. But as it comes across, it's going to have a lot of lift associated with it as well across the deep south. That's going to set the stage for a widespread rain, going to be changing over to snow on Tuesday. So let's take a look at the setup. This is for Monday. This is where the system's going to be for Monday. So we're going to have more snows moving back in the picture across portions of Denver into portions of Santa Fe there. There's also going to be some snow showers up here in portions of the White Mountains, where they're going to be adding to those totals up there. But as we move through and heading up into Tuesday, I'm going to be breaking this down for you as far as the global models. Here's the latest GFS. Notice where the low pressure is. That's well back in the Big Bend right there in far west Texas. And that's going to set the stage for an increased lift as it drags down that Arctic air. Look how far south the 540 line is, right? And look at the latest European guidance, kind of the same deal. So we're starting to see model congruency starting to show up as far as the placement of where it's going to be by the time we get into Monday night. So as it starts shifting across Texas and across Oklahoma, there are going to be subtle changes in the difference of the overall track with this particular system, and that's going to be meaning the difference on who gets the most snow and who gets less snow, and how much snow is going to be transferring over from the rain to the snow going into your Tuesday. But look at the setups where you've been missing them. It's basically in the middle of the country. This is the latest drought index, and all these areas on yellow here, that's where we're starting to see drought conditions starting to develop really across Texas and a good cross of portions of the Central Plains here. Most of the setups have been seeing essentially east of the I-35 corridor. So a lot of these areas have been seeing a lot of these systems are not really in a drought right now. So this is very beneficial, snow or not. All this liquid precipitation is going to fall into areas that they desperately need the precipitation, and they're going to get it in a big way. So let's zoom in and really delve in here to the details on a Tuesday afternoon. As the low pressure center will be starting to move across, it's going to have what they call dynamic cooling. It's going to be able to drag down some of that colder air aloft, and that alone is going to be dropping the temperatures about 5 degrees. So as you can see the movement on this, where the upper level low will be, we're talking middle 30s up there in Oklahoma and parts of North Texas, especially into the Texas Panhandle, but further south into South Texas and especially east parts of Texas into Louisiana, you're in the 70s, folks. That's in the warm sector. Here's the latest European model, actually shows it a little bit further south. So notice the temperatures as the low pressure will continue to swing across. These are afternoon temperatures, folks. This is about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They're seeing widespread 35, 38 degrees as that changeover starts to occur from the rain to the very wet snow, and a good chunk of Oklahoma, West Texas, and some of that snow will actually start to sneak into portions of North Texas as this moves across into the late morning, afternoon time frame. So, but to the south of there, it's all about the severe weather, folks. I mean, you're going to be continued to remain in the warm sector. I showed you the temperatures. You got upper 60s, if not almost 70 degrees. For the 4th week in a row, pretty much every week so far in January, unfortunately, you've had severe weather across the southeast, and next week's not going to be much different. It's going to be pulling much further south, so because eventually we'll have some of this colder air. But places into Mobile, places into Montgomery, back into Auburn, those areas will be susceptible to seeing some of those strong to severe thunderstorms coming up on the day on Tuesday. But where we're not talking severe is across the good chunk of Dallas, Fort Worth, into Oklahoma, through the Arklatex, through Arkansas, into Missouri. This is the overall 24-hour snowfall potential for these areas. Like I mentioned, a lot of this is going to be forming in the fall of rain. Is going to be liquid. But this is the actual snow that could change over. So yes, we're talking a potential 32, 35, even 38 degrees snowfall. It can still snow if it's basically colder than 40 degrees. This may be just not going to stick on the surfaces. But this could be like a heavy, wet snow where it does actually cool the boundary layer in a lot of these areas. And you could be surprised with some quick burst of snow down here into West Texas, into North Texas, into Oklahoma, through Arkansas. That'll swing up portions of Kentucky, through Illinois and Indiana, and eventually swing up through Ohio. And this will continue to lift northeast, swinging through portions of Pennsylvania. You've been missing out on a lot of snow. I know a lot of these areas, you're kind of in a snow drought. You're well below average for this time of year. So this is going to be a kind of a significant storm for this region and kind of help with these snowfall totals that you've been lacking Here's the latest GFS. I noticed the difference in the tracks. It tracks it just a little bit further north, and that makes all the difference in the world. It still has some snow changing over as we're starting to see the global models really start to come together as this system gets closer now into the Pacific Northwest, right? So it'll be setting up over this area on Tuesday heading into Wednesday. But look at those totals. If the GFS comes to fruition, that's over a foot of snow in Oklahoma. So there's going to be a lot of liquid with this setup, right? So the little bit of uncertainty right now is the overall exact track of this position. You can see the difference in the global models, and that makes all the difference of the world of 2 inches and a foot of snow. But it's going to be a heavy, wet snow in a lot of these regions. So definitely be prepared for that. And this will swing since the GFS is a little bit further north. That puts the snow line a little bit further north. So we're talking central Illinois, portions of northern portions of Indiana, getting through Ohio, swinging up into the Northeast with some heavier amounts of snow for that going into your day on Thursday. But as we go into Friday, you start to see the initial return of the polar vortex as we head up into Canada, up here in Saskatchewan, up here into Manitoba. We're talking 23 below zero, guys, coming up on Friday morning. So that's some significance a week from now as the polar vortex, those temperatures well to the north are starting to finally creep in further southbound. So overall into Canada, they'll be looking at widespread below zero temperatures up there in Quebec, 28 below. Those negative numbers will start creeping into the Dakotas, back into Minnesota. And as we continue to get deeper into the month, those colder temperatures will also be filtering a little bit further south. But you can see the initial stages of what they call cross-polar flow really starting to set up as true Arctic air enters the picture again as we head into next weekend up into Canada. That'll eventually start sliding southbound into the lower 48. Here's the temperatures on Sunday. These are actual temperatures, folks. Widespread 20 below zero will start enter the portions of Minnesota, getting below zero in Iowa, getting below zero into Illinois by then. Those negative numbers in single digits will start going across into through Ohio and through portions of western PA as the cold air will continue to push a little bit further south. So yeah, if you live in Texas, you're not exactly experiencing the Arctic air, for next weekend, as much of the polar lobe will be confined to Canada and much further north and through the upper Midwest, portions of the Ohio Valley. And we'll look at the wind chills. This is dangerous stuff, guys. I mean, we're talking 53 below zero feels like up there in Canada. Going into Quebec, same deal, almost a negative 60 below zero, guys. That is dangerous stuff. Is true Arctic air definitely enters the picture as we head towards the end of the month, with those negative numbers extending all the way as far south through Missouri with those feels like temperatures. So as we extend the view and head towards the 30th of the month, you can look at that polar lobe. This is the polar lobe on the GFS guidance, really locked over a good chunk of Canada, trying to extend across the upper Midwest, through portions of the Ohio Valley and portions of the Northeast. Now, the difference in these models going out 10 days is where the polar lobe will be. The Canadian guidance actually has it lifted a little bit further west. Of course, that makes all the difference in the world. If you're under that polar lobe with well below average temperature anomalies, could be locked over across the central US and portions along into the west. So there are some differences this far out on where exactly the polar lobe will be. But if we expand it and take it a step further, those polar lobes puts pressure and it eventually breaks the dam. So all indications hint as we go into that first week of February that those polar lobes are eventually going to give way to the Arctic blast heading southbound all the way down into the deep south of Texas into Mexico. So that's why I think when the entire lower 48, as we extend into that first week of February, that they'll start to see the true Arctic blasts kind of really taking over, by then as much of them will be locked under that very cold temperatures. But this is the snow. Let me break it down for you for the European guidance. This is pretty much a significant shift in the overall setup, as most of these areas have not really seen little to no snow so far this year, with that low pressure center diving across Texas, diving across Oklahoma. These are some of the amounts that could unfold as that changeover from rain to snow. And then definitely some significant amounts as we head towards Indiana, portions of Ohio, through western PA, good chunk of Pennsylvania, good chunk of upstate New York. Vermont, New Hampshire just gets crushed over the next 10 days with 2 to 3 feet of snow. So you got a lot of snow coming. Here's the GFS. Like I mentioned, the overall track brings it a little bit further north. Still has a little bit of a North Texas into play. Still has West Texas into play, but it definitely puts more of Colorado and Oklahoma into play with almost a foot of snow, if not more than that. So you can see the difference in guidance. It goes to show you this has a lot of potential and liquid available with it. And then how much of that is going to be followed in the form of snow. And we could be looking at some very heavy snows in these areas, but not really a cold snow. We're talking a very wet snow, 32, 35, even 38 degrees at times, potentially snowing in a lot of those areas, changing over from that rain to a snow. And then that will extend through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. And there's your Canadian. It actually pulls it even a little bit further. So I've got the European number 1, the GFS number 2, and this is, in my mind, the least likely scenario, because I do feel that low pressure will dig into West Texas and pull that snow line further south. So this snow line should be further south than what the Canadian actually has it. I lean towards more of the European type guidance as of right now. So hey guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video. Definitely hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after the storm.